It's absolutely stunning. And that's the only thing that made up for the -35 temperatures that we had to endure.
When I read it, my jaw, like an anvil, hit the ground, and when we shot it, it's absolutely magnificent.
I don't think the fans will be disappointed in any way.
That was a lesson in filming, realising that they were going to add another dimension to it.
I think it's probably my favourite scene of all time.
All time? Anything you've ever acted?
Yeah.
The writing on this is really, really good, as are the production values. So there wasn't a lot of persuasion needed, really.
Somebody actually texted me the other day and they were just raving about it, and he was just like, I've seen it and it's amazing, you're going to be so proud of it.
If we go south to the land of the Lazarene, the Landman will kill us and take your dragons. If we go west to the Dothraki Sea, the first Khalasar we meet will kill us and take your dragons.
No one will take my dragons.
Emilia Clarke, Daenerys Targaryen, welcome to Thronecast.
Thank you
for
very
coming in.
much.
I'm going to do a little bit of a summary here. Now, you were married for the political benefit of your brother
Yes.
to a man who doesn't speak your language.
Yes.
Somewhat aggressive in bed at first, kills your only surviving family member.
Somewhat aggressive in bed, I love that.
Then you fall in love with him.
Yes.
Get pregnant.
Yes.
Lose the baby, then the husband. Now, I can
Yes.
only assume you didn't draw from real life. How do you
No.
begin to get into that sort of character?
The books, really, genuinely, is where I kind of got everything from and continue to get everything from. George's imagination.
Yeah, one of the strongest female characters, I would say, in the whole of it, if not
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because it's not just that she's kind of a woman dealing with a man's world, it's that she's a girl dealing with a man's world. And that's kind of, I think the shocking thing is that I do look quite young in it, which is kind of alarming. And so it's sort of struggling to be taken seriously in that sense.
Okay, now, bringing us back up to date, is there one thing that was a favourite of yours that we can really look forward to from Series 2?
It's my babies, it's my dragons. They are just incredible cast members, and it's kind of the idea of that I've lived with for the whole of Season 1 is kind of coming to life in Season 2 is just incredible, incredible.
When you're filming that, do you have a model, or do you have nothing and you are sort of literally pretending?
So what we did for the camera rehearsals is we had a life-scale model that I got really maternal over and really protective over, and kind of, yeah, they were like my children.
Theon was a bit sort of on the sidelines in the first season,
Yeah.
but this
Comes to the fore.
very much into his own.
Definitely, yeah. He sort of goes to see his family and things go sort of okay.
What do you think of him as a character?
I think he's misguided. You know, I don't think he's intentionally bad, even though people will think he is. He's got a huge identity crisis, really, because he's trying to sort of be a loyal person and honourable like the Starks, but then he's also trying to prove to the Greyjoys that he is one of them and that he can be. And I just think, yeah, that leads him to make the wrong decisions because he's trying to prove so desperately.
Because he was shipped off, wasn't he, from his father?
At 9 years old, I think it was. He was never treated badly, so it's not like he's trying to get his own back on the Starks or anything. It's just purely because his head is turned when he goes to see the Greyjoys, and he's like, oh God, what do I do? I've got to prove to them that I'm now one of them, and it all just sort of goes from there, really.
You want to lead one day? We'll learn how to follow.
Kit Harington. Jon Snow, do you feel that coldness is part of the character?
I think it has to be. Inevitably it is now. I don't know, I think he's got a draw to the north. You know, I think he always said, I'm of the north, and he sees himself as a Stark and part of his, you know, and very much his father's son. So I think he always wanted to go north to Night's Watch, and I think that's where he ends up going. For me as an actor, it's not the most pleasant environment to go to.
I was going to ask, because you had to spend a lot of time Iceland.
To be honest, it's a miracle we managed to get the whole thing done. We had these Icelandic guys helping us out, and they had these beards that would literally freeze into blocks of ice that you could tap, and it was that cold. But I shouldn't talk about the cold, because when I read the books, you know, Season 1 I was just looking forward to because it was Season 1, but Season 2 was the bit where John goes out into the real world, as it were. You know, he's been in season 1. He's constantly caught between a rock and a hard place, in that he doesn't know what to do, whether to stay at the wall, whether to go and join his brother. I mean, he's in a constant flux of angst, you know, and never really sees any action. Season 2, he's in the real world. He's beyond the wall, and he's made his decision, and it's clear, and he's left all of that angst behind him. So it's the bit I was really looking forward to.
Michelle Fairley, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to Thronecast.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Since we last talked to you, it seems Rob is sending you off. How do you think she feels about that?
It's a mixed bag with Catelyn, because in the first episode of Series 2, she basically says to her son, who is now making claims to being King of the North, Catelyn said, I need to go home and see my sons, Rickon and Bran. I haven't seen him for ages, and he said, you can't. I want you to be a special peace envoy for me. So off she goes on her travels. And she is assured by Rob that if she does this, at the end of it, they'll all end up happy in Winterfell.
She's very much about duty, isn't she? And
well, her whole motive for doing this is to get her family back together again. She wants the girls back from King's Landing. She wants to get up to Winterfell to be with her boys, and she wants Rob there as well. Because most of my stuff is with Rob this year, because there was one really interesting scene with Renly, which required a lot of special effects. So that was really interesting. It was a lesson in filming, with realising that afterwards, after you'd completed your filming, they were going to add another dimension to it. So it was going to, and you had to react in a different way, even though it wasn't actually there. So, but there were lots of wonderful things on the horse riding stuff as well. I mean, honestly, I'm not joking. There's scenery. The journey that Catelyn goes on this time takes her to the most incredible locations, and they just look amazing.
Charles Dance, it's an honour to have you with us on the Thronecast. How did you get involved with it? Did the producers have to persuade you? Is it something you knew of and wanted to do?
No, they didn't have to persuade me very much to do it, because the writing is really good, you know, and as an actor you often have to expend a lot of energy trying to make a silk purse out of a pig's ear and improve bad writing. But the writing on this is really, really good, as are the production values. So there wasn't a lot of persuasion needed.
I mean, you know, potentially one of the most hated characters in the show, which is really saying something for Game of Thrones.
I love playing Jaime, because it's so much fun doing those scenes, because he will not allow you to get away with insulting him. Because that's actually, if you look at the scenes again, every scene, like in the season 1 with Ned Stark, with Catelyn Stark, anyone, they always start out with basically insulting him, basically saying, well, we all know you're a piece of shit, like Kingslayer or whatever. And he's not just going to accept that. He's just going to go, really? I am? Well, let's talk about you then. And then he's only being truthful. The things he says are all true. It's very inappropriate, though.
Love how you defend him. I think it's brilliant. I've heard you do that quite a few times, and I think it's brilliant. But without giving anything away, is there one scene that was your favourite from Series 2 that we can look forward to?
Episode 7.
Oh, wow, very specific. Any hints? Or?
It's just my favourite. I think it's probably my favourite scene of all time.
All time? Anything you've ever acted in?
Yeah.
Wow, OK, episode 7. Where did you film?
I did Belfast.
Handy.
Yeah, indeed, because I live in Dublin, so I'm 2 hours up the road. I mean, when I met the guys said, you haven't signed on for a long series before, is this something you want to do? And I said, look, HBO are making the best television in the world at the moment. They're probably making the best television that has ever been made. And when they've come to my doorstep and offered the quality of writing that this show is, it's a no-brainer. You couldn't get me up there quick enough. I think it's wrong to call it a fantasy series. I think there's a fantasy backdrop to this. It's an extraordinary tapestry of incredible characters who are in extraordinary positions in their lives. It's a beautiful piece of television.